About 4 years ago, I was asked by a client to help his team, or his leadership team in New York, understand what does an organisational culture look like. And that got me thinking, because what I think is an organisational culture versus someone else is very different. And that's exactly what I found, is when I asked what someone understood to be culture and what that looked like in their business, I got different answers everywhere I went. So what I did with some of my colleagues at Ubicom was to do some research, and we looked at all sorts of global studies related to what do the very best businesses do and what does that look like related to the culture of their business. And what came out of that were 3 big global studies that we used. One was from Gallup, one was from McKinsey, and one was from Bain. The latter two are big US consultancy firms that looked at the very best companies of their clients, that is, and looked at what they did differently from everyone else. And what came from that bit of research that I did 3-4 years ago was actually 6 key things. We call them pillars. And so what I'll do is I'll explain to you what each of those pillars are and what that looks like and what good looks like effectively. So what is the first pillar? What we found was that trust and empowerment is an essential key for employees to feel as though they're working in a good environment. What does that mean? Well, we all like to be trusted. We all like to feel that we're trusted to do the job we're being asked to do without someone looking over our shoulder, micromanaging us, all those things which we hate. And we've got to earn that trust, but we've got to be in an environment where we can earn that trust and then be trusted to do the job. And be empowered, that whole concept of empowerment, which is really that I'm trusting you as a leader, I trust you to do the job, and you know what, I know it's going to get done. So that is the first key pillar. When we looked at all the different ingredients of what a great company looks like, there is that essential. So the second pillar, what is that? The second pillar is all around a strong leadership team with a clear vision and purpose, unified and also approachable. So it's all related to the leadership group. What does that mean? Well, it's obvious, isn't it, I think, which is that right from the CEO or managing director down, there is clarity around what is it and where are we going? What is it we're trying to achieve? And that there's a unity related to the leadership team, so they all believe in the same thing. There isn't catfighting, and I've been to companies where there's been a lot of that. So it's really the best businesses are the ones which have a unified leadership team. And I think essentially they're also seen to be very approachable, so there's no ivory towers. We're not going to stick ourselves in an office with a shut door and go away, I don't want to speak to you, I'm far too important. There is a real humanity to the leadership group where people feel comfortable to do what on earth, to go and have a chat with them, share ideas, good and bad. So that is essential as the second part of a good quality culture. The third pillar is what we call external focus or customer focus, because basically we can, if we want to, as an organisation, we can focus entirely on what's going on inside. If there are things which aren't quite working, we get obsessive almost about internal politics and all of those things, and we kind of forget the most important element, which is our customers. They're the ones that pay our mortgages. They're the ones that if we don't keep them happy, we go out of business. And so the very best organisations from the studies that we were looking at were the ones that concentrated on their customers and or the external part of their business, made sure that that was all right, and then aligned everything inside to make sure that they were delighting their customers and or providing the service that they were doing. So it's really essential to look outwards rather than be constantly looking inwards. So the fourth pillar of a really strong organisational culture is a real focus, I sometimes even say an obsession, on personal and professional development. So we all know that if we are growing as an individual, if we're feeling as though we're getting better at what we do, we're being supported and encouraged in that process, we feel good. And it's not rocket science. And so those businesses that really tap into that They look at the individual as a whole. They look at what can we do to help this person to develop and grow. What are the different things that we could do to coach this person to become really, really good at what they do. Well, those businesses are the ones that are outstanding, certainly, and will have a culture that people want to come to. There are lots of organisations, great examples of that. When you see companies like Google, LinkedIn, a lot of businesses, Unilever in the UK, have a real focus on personal and professional development, and they're the ones that often have very high engagement scores because people want to come to work there. The fifth pillar is probably one of the hardest ones, and if from all the clients that I work with, this is the bit they really struggle with, which is outstanding communication. You'd think it's quite simple, because basically outstanding communication means from the top down, and then also to have a channel whereby the bottom, dare I say it, the lowest or most junior individuals in the business can feel that they can communicate quite clearly up the chain of command. And then also the hardest bit of all, which is from side to side, which is department to department, division to division, office to office. That bit really can be very challenging. And every company I go to, whenever we measure how people perceive communication, it's always perceived to be, it could be a lot better. Very few businesses score maximum or near maximum in that area. And that goes from the external communications, dare I say it, from board down, so emails or whatever it is. Emails sometimes are the lazy option when it comes to communication, and so that's a real focus for us as an organisation to help companies to say, look, what are the alternatives to email communication, because it's lazy, it doesn't work very often, and it doesn't get the message across. So what are the different alternatives? And so there are lots of different solutions to that, all different for each business, but that is a real key area to focus on. So that's the fifth pillar. And the final pillar is what I describe as the magic dust. And we call it either a winning attitude or a growth attitude. They're kind of the same, which is all about what am I doing, or what are we doing as an individual or a company, which is going to make me better in the next 6 months than I was in the previous 6 months. How am I going to improve? How am I going to challenge myself or us as a company to get better? What can we be doing differently, which is going to improve and raise our standards? And some businesses do that really well. They encourage that, and some just are comfortable in the status quo, just to do the same old. We like to encourage our clients to get into the other mindset of, on an individual basis and an organisational basis, challenge ourselves to do better in the next 6 months than we did in the previous. Whether that be from a revenue generation perspective or purely from an individual getting better at their own skill set. It's that attitude. If you can instill within your organisation, you become one of the very best businesses in your sector. So that's the final pillar, as it were. And if we get every one of those pillars down pat, then you are sure to become one of the very best businesses in your sector.